gonna wait for the walls to fall, 'cause I know a name that can bring them down. And I've got a praise waking within my soul, and I'm not ashamed to declare it now. Light of the world, trampled the darkness, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Prepare the way, the King of glory comes, and before his name every fear must bow. And throw off your chains, 'cause Jesus destroyed them all. And up from the grave, he is with us now. Light of the world, trample the darkness, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. The gates of hell will never stand a chance. Your name prevails, Jesus the great I am. No word will fail, no weapon formed against your name prevails, Jesus the great I am. The gates of hell will never stand a chance. Your name prevails, Jesus the great I am. No word will fail, no weapon formed against your name prevails, Jesus the great I am. Light of the world, trample the darkness, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished, and nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise.
Have you ever bought something that you thought was going to change your life? You see the commercials for it all the time, and I am a sucker for marketing gimmicks. Like LeBron James Sprite comes out, and of course I bought it, and I try it, and it's absolutely terrible. If I'm walking through the grocery store and I see that there's a weird flavor of chips, I'm probably going to buy it because I want to know what it tastes like. Or I bought this candle that when you light it, the actual candle changes color because, you know, who doesn't need that in our life? Because the light from the flame is never enough. Or there's that stamp collection that came out from last week tonight because, you know, I need those stamps for all of the mail that I send. And it's getting to this fun point in our marriage where it's kind of a fun game. Like, I see something and I go, ooh, and Kelsey says, absolutely not. And then I respond, it's too late, I already bought it. But you know, we see all these commercials for these products and they promise one thing, that they will change your life. You know, I thought it was going to change my life, but they let me down. That candle was fun the first time and then it got kind of dumb. But all of these products, they follow the simple marketing formula. Your life is incomplete. That you need something to make your life better, and this product is the one thing that will do it. And if you have it, your life will be complete. This is marketing. Does your man snore? All you have to do is add this sexy anti-snore chin strap, and then you will sleep well, and he will sleep well, and you both will live happily ever after. We buy into this lie that our life is incomplete. So we buy something to feel complete, but we learn that it was just this promise, but it was never going to live up to those promises and our expectations. We've all had this before. You buy something that doesn't work out, or relationships that we have. You think, if I just love them, if I serve them, if I meet their needs, if I do these things, then everything will be great. Our relationships will be wonderful. Our friendships will be great. But we've all had the moments where friends have let us down. We've been hurt by our friendships. We can explain, we can justify when a product lets us down or a friend disappoints us. But what do you do when you feel like you were let down and hurt by God? What do you do when you feel like God has not fulfilled the promises that he has made, and you find yourself in this moment waiting? God, I thought you promised this thing, and here I am. I want to look at this idea that God is a miracle worker, a promise keeper, but specifically, I want to look at the idea that God is a promise keeper, that God keeps his promises even when it doesn't make sense. He is always at work, and he keeps his promise. Even when he is silent, he keeps his promise. His silence does not mean inactivity. Today we're going to look at the story that comes out of 2 Kings 4. But before we get to it, I want to jump into the story that comes right before it, because these two stories are connected. Oftentimes we treat them separately, but they need to be seen together, because it's the story of a woman who is down on her luck. She's a widow, her husband has died, and at that time it meant that all of her sources of income are gone. Like, she has no hope. She is in need, she is desperate. And she finds herself running out of food, and she throws herself at the feet of Elisha and says, I need a miracle. Otherwise, I am going to starve to death. I have no hope. I need a miracle now. Elisha asks her a simple question. What do you have available? Pretty similar to the sermon we had last week, when Jesus asked, what do you have available? And she says, all I have is this little bit of flour and oil. And once I make this into bread, that's it, Elisha. I'm done. I've got nothing else. Elisha tells her, go collect some jars, and God is going to do something amazing. God does this incredible miracle, and the jars of oil, it continues to flow, and it fills up all these other jars, and it provides enough that she is able to keep what she needs and sells off the extra to provide for herself. God provides for her in this miraculous way, and the story begins with a woman who is desperately in need. In the second story, we meet a woman who has the opposite problem. She's well-to-do. She has plenty of money. She has everything she needs. She has no need for God to show up in a miraculous way. And this is where our story picks up in 2 Kings 4. We're going to look at verses 8 through 37. And this is what it says. One day, Elisha went to Shunem, and a well-to-do woman was there who urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. She said to her husband, I know that this man who often comes our way is a holy man of God. Let's make a small room on the roof and put a bed and a table, a chair, and a lamp for him, that he can stay there whenever he comes by. We don't want him to stay at the Shunem motel. We want him to stay at our house. And so it says, one day when Elisha came, he went to his room and he lay down there. He said to his servant Gehazi, just side note, another wonderful male name if you have a boy on the way, I recommend the name Gehazi. He said to his servant Gehazi, call the Shunammite. So he called her and she stood before him. Elisha said to him, tell her you have gone to all this trouble for us. What can be done for you? Elisha says, have you gone out of your way for us with no expectation of anything? What can I do for you? I think this gives us a glimpse of the heart of God. We often give to God with this expectation of return, that we give, and And sometimes we hope that God returns. And I'm thinking, like, if I just give, it forces God to bless me. But I love that what happens. This woman gives without expecting anything, and God conspires for a way to bless her. And Elisha says, can we speak on your behalf to the king or the commander of the army? She replied, I have a home among my own people. What can be done for her? Elisha asked. Gehazi said, she has no son and her husband is old. This was a big deal at the time, and it's still a big deal today for a lot of us, to not have kids. But at that time, if you didn't have kids, it was seen as a curse from God that maybe you have done something or someone in your family has done something, but God has cursed you. And that is why you don't have children. And so you're walking around at that time with this thought that I am cursed, and everyone looks at me and what they see is someone who is cursed. But then Elisha said, call her. So he called her and she stood in the doorway. About this time next year, Elisha said, you will hold a son in your arms. Imagine if you wanted a kid and you just heard Elisha say to you that you're going to have a kid. Wouldn't you be excited, right? Here's a man of God who performs miracles. He has done incredible things, and he says to you, you are going to have a child. But look at how she responds. No, my Lord, she objected. Please, man of God, don't mislead your servant. She's tried everything. She was well-to-do. There's a reason that was in the passage. She has spent the money. She's seen the doctor. She has done everything she can, but yet she was never able to have a child of her own. She objected because she didn't want to open up her heart to that pain again, to think, I don't want to be let down. I don't want to be disappointed. Verse 17 says, but the woman became pregnant, and the next year, about the same time, she gave birth to a son, just as Elisha had told her. I wish we could just stop here at verse 17, because this would be a great end to the sermon. We have this cute line that God keeps his promises that he's made to you. We could just end it here, and we could all be excited at home and just be like, you know what? God's going to keep his promises. Things are going to be great. But the verse keeps going. In verse 18, it says, the child grew. And one day he went out to his father who was with the reapers. He said to his father, my head, my head. His father told the servant, carry him to his mother. After the servant had lifted him up and carried him to his mother, the boy sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. And then he died. What do you do with that? That was God fulfilling a promise. She didn't ask for this baby. She didn't ask for this child. God said through Elisha, you will have a baby. She didn't ask for it. She'd given up hope that she was ever going to have a child, but yet she gets a child. She loves this child. And this child is the fulfillment of a promise from God. This child is an amazing blessing. But the passage tells us, but then he died. It says the child died at noon, and I think the writer is trying to show us something. The sun is at the highest point of the day, and at that exact moment, the mother is at the lowest point imaginable. The sun is as bright, and the mom has never walked through something darker in her life. And then he died. What do you do when the dream in your heart has died? When God's not fulfilling the promises that you thought he was going to keep? If it's me in this situation, if I have just lost my child, I'm about to plan a funeral. I am mourning the loss of my child. But that's not what the mom does. She knows that God makes and God keeps promises. It's this absolutely terrible moment in her life, and parents should never have to bury their children. But instead of planning a funeral, she plans for a miracle. Instead of planning a funeral, she gathers up all of her faith and she says, I'm not going to let this be the end of my story. This is not how it's going to end. In verse 21, we see that she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and then shut the door and went out. This is a mom on a mission. There is nothing going to stop her. You do not want to get in her way because she's going to do whatever it takes. In verse 22, it says, she called her husband and said, please send me one of the servants and a donkey so I can go to the man of God quickly and return. Why go to him today, he asked. It's not the new moon or the Sabbath. "That's all right," she said. She saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Lead on. Don't slow down for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. When he saw her in the distance, the man of God said to his servant, Gehazi, "Look, there's the Shunammite. Run to meet her and ask her, are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is your child all right?" Elisha sees her come. He says, "That's the woman that cooks good food. Go see if she's okay. See if she's brought anything." And we're told she responds with this line, "Everything is all right." The woman responds, "Everything is all right." It takes a lot of faith to speak about something that you cannot see yourself. What kind of faith and courage does this woman have to speak life when her dream seems dead? What kind of faith does it take for us to be able to speak life when it seems as if the things that we hoped for cannot come to be? When she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took a hold of his feet. Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She is in bitter distress, but the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me why." "Did I ask for a son, my Lord?" she said. "Didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes?" I think she responds the same way we would. "God, why did you do this? I didn't even ask for this. I didn't want to get my hopes up. I am in a situation that I would have never been in if you would have just listened to me." Elisha said to Gehazi, "Tuck your cloak into your belt. Take my staff in your hand and run. Don't greet anyone you meet. If anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face." But the child's mother said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So Elisha got up and he followed her. Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or response. So Gehazi went back to meet Elisha and told him, "The boy has not awakened." When Elisha reached the house, there was the boy lying dead on the couch. She had a need that she had never expected based on a promise she was never expecting. She never thought she'd be in this situation because she never had this hope, but this was even a possibility. In verse 33, it says, he went in, he shut the door on the two of them, and he prayed to the Lord. I often thought that this was like this moment of great faith, that Elisha was going to close the door and have this moment with God that was going to be amazing. But the more I read this, and now that I'm a parent, I think he goes into the room and he shuts the door because he is afraid of the mother. And I honestly think he's praying for his life. God, I just need you to heal this child right now. Heal this child so that I don't die because this mother will kill me. And then the verse keeps going and the Bible gets really weird right here. In verse 34, it says, then he got on the bed and he lay on the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands, and he stretched himself out on him and the boy's body grew warm. Imagine you've been in a car accident and after you wake up, you're in the ER, you open your eyes, and there is a doctor lying on you, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, and hands to hands. Why in the world did Elisha do this? I read a bunch of commentaries and there's all these thoughts of why it was, but no one really knows. Some say mouth to mouth was like God breathing life into Adam, and eyes to eyes so he can see his future, and that's okay, but it's still really weird to weird. Verse 35 says, Elisha turned away and walked back and forth in the room, and then he got on the bed, stretched out on him once more. Because if it wasn't weird enough, we should probably just do it again, because why not make it even crazier? And then it says the boy sneezed 7 times and he opened his eyes. This idea of the boy sneezing 7 times, there's this ancient teaching that when God breathed life into Adam, they say Adam sneezed 7 times. It was his first act of life. He breathed in God and he sneezed to come to life. I don't know if that's true. I just think Adam sneezed. The very first thing he heard was God saying, bless you. Not a bad way to start your life. I don't know what all that means, but it just says he sneezes 7 times, and then Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite. And he did. And when she came in, he said, take your son. She came in and fell at his feet and bowed to the ground. Then she took her son and went out. It's an absolutely amazing miracle, and there's this incredible moment of trust that this woman had, that God was going to fulfill her promise. She was holding her body of her son and thinking there was no hope. Here's a woman who has everything she needs, she's well-to-do, and yet there's something that no matter how hard she tries, no matter how wealthy she is, there's absolutely nothing she can do. God sees it and answers her and says, you will have a son. And with all of that, this is the woman's response. She objected to it. She says, God, I don't even want this. How often do we find ourselves just like the woman? We've tried absolutely everything. When we feel like it's never going to work, we get this sense of hope. And what do? We object. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. I'm never going to get out of this dead-end job. I'm never going to get out of this financial mess that I am in. My marriage will never be restored, and it's never going to get any better than how it is right now. So many of us, right? We object to the promise of God. There's a lot in this story that I don't understand, but what I do see is that God sees from an entirely different perspective than us. Or another way of saying it is, God has a way of overruling our objections. God has a view that is higher and it's beyond ours. He can see our story in a way that we will never be able to. Now, I am a huge NFL fan, and I am praying that God will make a way for sports to come back, because I believe He will make a way when there seems to be no way. And I would love to see the NFL on TV again. In the NFL, if a player commits a penalty, holding, pass interference, offsides, whatever, the referee sees it, he blows his whistle, and he throws the yellow flag to show that this foul has been committed. And a while back, the NFL introduced the red flag because, referees were getting calls wrong. So they wanted to create a way to remove some of the human error from the game. So they gave coaches a red flag. So when the referee calls a penalty or says a catch wasn't caught, it was incomplete, or maybe they didn't get the first down, and if the coach disagrees, he can throw the red flag and he says, I'm calling for a different perspective. I'm calling for this to be looked at again because I don't think that's how it was. So he's asking the referees to go up and call someone who is in a higher seat, who has a different angle, who has a bunch of different views. And so they bring in all the camera angles and the referees can look at it, and it allows them to make the right call. Well, at least most of the time they can make the right call. But what happens to you and what happens to me in moments when our life doesn't make sense, and it seems as if God is silent or inactive, or maybe God has made the wrong call, we need to see that God overrules our objections because He can see it from a different perspective. He has all the angles and all the views that we don't have. What would it look like to say, God, I trust you? To have that faith that says, God, I trust you even when I don't understand. I am going to trust you. Maybe you're like the woman and it's noon and the sun is at the brightest moment, but you feel as if you were at the lowest and darkest season of your life. Even in these moments, you can say, God, I trust that you are good and that you can overrule my objections, and I am going to you for a higher perspective because I'm going to trust that you have all the angles and you have all the views and you know what call is best. I think everything would change if we lived our lives with a simple idea that God is good. When it feels like we're up against a wall, when it feels like things are impossible, like impossible is where God starts. When we are at our end, it is where God begins. Because God is the promise maker and the promise keeper. He makes His promises and that He will fulfill them. God always will keep His promises. I want to end with a simple question. What's that promise that you're holding on to? It feels hard to hold on to, but yet in your heart that God is the promise keeper. What is that promise that you are holding on to? Because we have a God who makes a way when there seems to be no way. Amen.
And I need you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. All I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I need you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. And all I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me, and my flesh may fail. My God, you never will. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me, and my flesh may fail. But my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me, and my flesh may fail. My God, you never will. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me, and my flesh may fail. But my God, you never will.
As you go about your week, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord go before you to lead you, behind you to protect you, beneath you to be your firm foundation, beside you so you may know that you are never alone, and may he be above you to shower you with his grace. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God goes with you always. Amen.